How do you keep the momentum going after a huge week 1 win? Well, you play 3 days later against another NFC contender.
You are Locked On Packers, your daily Green Bay Packers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Packers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm Peter Bukowski, and I cover the Packers for The Leap, a newsletter I would love for you to subscribe to. Follow me on Twitter, Peter_Bukowski. Follow the podcast on Twitter, Locked On Packers. Like us on Facebook. Subscribe to the podcast to iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, wherever you find podcasts. You will find Locked On Packers, the #1 Packers podcast on the internet, and the show for fans who know what happened, they want to know why and how. Thanks to everyone who makes Locked On Packers their first listen every day. We hope you like starting your day with us as much as we like starting our day with you. It would be easy to let down after a week 1 game with all of the emotion that the Packers experienced on Sunday. Micah Parsons in his first game, all the adrenaline and fanfare that comes with that. And then having the pressure, internal and external, of playing the Detroit Lions in week 1 with all of the questions that they had to answer about beating the best teams, about beating divisional opponents. There had to have been a certain amount of catharsis. And if they were playing the Browns this week, you might wonder. You might go, there is letdown potential here. Instead, they play 3 days later on national television, at home, prime time, against another team you are battling in the conference for playoff positioning, for seeding, and for narrative space. You want to say, forget the Eagles, we are the team to beat? Punk the Lions in week 1, punk the Commanders in week 2. This is the perfect opportunity for the Packers. They go into this game. They don't have time to think about the Lions game anymore. It's right back to work. There's no relishing. There's no wallowing in the glory. No. It's right back to film, preparation, treatment. Guys got to get healthy. And we'll talk about some of the injuries as we know about them, at least right now. But the Packers now, you want to carry over. We talked yesterday, Jordan Love is the guy who can carry over that energy because the defense carried the day in the first game. Now you have the opportunity this week. Just keep going. You don't have to change that much. I wrote about this yesterday for The Leap, and we'll talk about defending Jaden Daniels. I don't think they have to do that many different things against the Commanders that they did against the Lions. You have to stop the run. You cannot allow them to create big plays vertically, and you have to rally and tackle underneath because they're going to take a lot of quick game, a lot of underneath run after catch. The difference with the Commanders is you got to deal with Jaden Daniels, the scrambler, Jaden Daniels, the maneuverer in the pocket. You can get after Jared Goff, bring pressure, and he'll turtle. Jaden Daniels was not great against pressure last year either. When you blitzed him, he had, I believe, top 5 interceptions, but he also had top 5 touchdowns. And part of that is because he can get out of tough spots. But this is not a great offensive line for the Commanders. The Packers can attack them. This is not a great defensive line for the Commanders. On offense, the Packers can come downhill and attack them. These linebackers, they want to be much like the Lions, downhill football players. So 2 tight ends on the field, you make them go backwards. It's not like you have to play some wildly different team. Dan Quinn wants to play a bunch of man coverage. And in fact, Matt LaFleur against Dan Quinn defenses, I believe, has never scored fewer than 30 points. He knows exactly how to attack this defense, just like the Packers know, having the experience that they do with the Lions, how to attack that defense. When they know what's coming, they know how to prepare and attack. And the carryover, the defense is going to be juiced to start this game. They know how well they played last week. The offense, there's some incremental improvement that is out there for them. Matthew Golden, can he be a little bit bigger part of the offense? Jaden Reed, is he a little bit more healthy? By the way, the Packers played a almost entirely clean game against the Lions. No offensive penalties and one drop. And that drop was a tough one. Jaden Reed in a adversity situation, but it's a ball that goes right through his hands. Like, you got to make that play. You can just keep doing the thing. Just keep doing what you're doing. The easiest way to get off a brutal loss or to get over a huge win is to play again, and play again fast. Get right back to the prep. The Packers are basically not going to practice between Sunday afternoon at, whatever, 6:30 local time and Thursday when they play the Commanders. The thing is, the Commanders are coming off a short week and they're having to travel. Now, early in the season, is that as big a deal as it would be in, say, week 12? Probably not. But at the same time, week 1 tends to be one of those games where you come out pretty banged up and tired because you're not used to this. Your body's not quite used to all of this yet. Being at this, no one has played 60 snaps at full go. Even if you played a game in the preseason where you played 60 snaps, and I would think probably none of these guys have, with the exception of maybe like Jordan Morgan, given the Aaron Banks injury. Remember last year, in the first 2 months of the season, teams that after they played the Lions were 0-6 through the first 6 games. Well, that could be the Packers this year. They were the more physical team in week 1. They brought it to the Detroit Lions. The Commanders did not have that sort of same physical test, but they had to deal with Dexter Lawrence, Abdul Carter, Kayvon Thibodeau, Brian Burns. That front, at least that offense did. Now, the Commanders' offense was not stressed by what the Giants were doing, like in any way, shape, or form. That offense was and is brutal. Russell Wilson and a just disastrous offensive line, a big reason for that. So the Packers, the opportunities here are clear. There's nothing tricky about this week. This is not, it's an uncommon opponent in that you don't see the Commanders every year, and they haven't seen Jaden Daniels since he's been in the league, but they know Dan Quinn. Matt LaFleur knows Cliff Kingsbury. We know what this is supposed to look like. And so if there was any question about, can they keep this going? Getting the opportunity now to have the Commanders come into your building. We talked about this on the squad show with Coach Jags. Defending home field is priority 1. You win all of your home games and half your road games, you're a 12-win team, and you're probably going to be a top 3 seed in the NFC. You've got this weird schedule where you don't play division games. The Packers don't play another division game for 2 months. These are your conference markers, your touchstones, this is who we are. And the narrative doesn't really matter for playoff purposes. You don't get extra points for winning the narrative game, but it is a confidence thing. And we have been big on this show talking about last year. I think this team was feeling itself a little too much. They thought they could just line up and play and beat anybody. Young, dumb, overconfident. No, I don't think they were dumb, but there is that overconfidence of youth. And this year they seem more focused. Jordan Love said it. We know how talented our football team is, but we have to go out and play like a really good football team. Last year, I think they believed in their talent too much. They believed they could just line up and beat you without paying attention to the details. You saw Sunday. The Packers out-prepared the Detroit Lions. They out-detailed the Detroit Lions. They out-coached the Detroit Lions. It's not a surprise they outplayed the Detroit Lions in a game they needed to have. Okay, next step, unfamiliar opponent. All those same caveats have to apply. You have to play the cleaner game. It's a Thursday night game. These games tend to be sloppy. Just don't be the sloppiest team on the field. Let the Commanders beat themselves. And you walk out of this 2-0 into a pretty nice stretch of your schedule looking like you're either the favorites or co-favorites in the NFC. And proving that this year is different. You can't really prove that until January, but if you could in the first 2 games, short of the Eagles, the only 2 teams you could beat in the first 2 weeks to show you are a bona fide contender, the Lions, the Commanders. That's it. You want to prove this year is different? You go beat these 2 teams. You go beat the Commanders 27-13, and now everyone's ears perk up. Everyone goes, whoa. Whoa. The Packers are a different animal this year. And guess what? The Packers are a different animal this year. Now, the injuries, they've got some questions. They've got some stuff to figure out. We'll talk about that next on Locked On Packers. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I had a great first week. It would have been even better. I think I would have gone 5 for 6 if the Bears had not fully collapsed on Monday Night Football. Still, I'll take it. Made money. Had a fun time with FanDuel because they have so many different ways to win. I bet spreads. I bet a parlay with the Cowboys and the over. I bet the money line. A lot of different ways for me to make money. And guess what? I made money basically doing all of it. It's quick, it's easy, and it's the best way to add a little energy to your Sunday. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. Today's episode also brought to you by Supply House. When the opening whistle blows on a new repair, get your crew moving forward with Supply House. Order today and see parts on your doorstep tomorrow. Over 280,000 plumbing, HVAC, and electrical items from the most trusted brands in the business. Their real-time inventory and honest lead times keep you from punting projects, while their industry-leading customer service always has your blind side covered. The part finder tools and 3D schematics can save you hours on jobs where the details matter, which is, by the way, all of them. Join the free Trademaster program today and score serious perks like priority shipping, lower prices, and a dedicated support line. Visit supplyhouse.com to sign up for free and use promo code SHNFL. So Supply House NFL, right? SHNFL5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. Real people, real service. Before we get into the Packers injuries this week, I just have to mention that Christian Watson got a 1-year, $13.25 million contract extension. Adam Schefter reported that last night. We don't have all the intricate details, but my blink test on this is it's a great deal for the Packers. Just this last offseason, Diami Brown got $10 million a year. Tutu Atwell got $10 million a year. Christian Watson is like materially better. He's more than 33% better than those guys. And so the Packers have always loved him, his ability to win against man coverage, his speed, his blocking. He's a great teammate. They love him. I wouldn't be surprised if he gets a 1-year extension. And then on top of that, a 3-year extension. I think this signals that Romeo Doubs is almost certainly not going to get an extension with the Packers moving forward. And Christian Watson going to be back sooner than later. I think you make this move precisely because you're ready to get him back on the field. So I would think almost immediately we should expect to see him. The PUP means he can't come back for another couple of weeks here, but I would expect Watson will be back on the field sooner than later, and I would think he will have a role sooner than later on this team, quick, fast, and in a hurry. The Packers got some good news on the injury front. Matthew Golden upgraded to a full participant for Tuesday's walkthrough, not a real practice, a walkthrough. Quay Walker upgraded to limited. And you have a number of players who are trying to figure it out. Jaden Reed, limited, upgraded from DMP. So he's limited. That's the good news. Those 3 players. Zach Tom did not practice. Aaron Banks did not practice in the walkthrough. Those are the 2 big ones here. I expect if Jaden Reed can't go, look, they're going to use Matthew Golden. They're in a good shape. I said on the shows last week, if the Packers had to go in against the Lions and it's just Romeo Doubs and Matthew Golden and you got to figure the rest out, I think they're fine. Now, Wicks seems like he's in good shape. Jaden Reed seems like he's in good shape, came out healthy enough. Against the Lions, they're just going to be careful with him. And I would expect they're going to continue to be careful with him as they move forward here. He made some big plays He had the big third down conversion against a pressure look where they got out of it and played cover 2 right down the center. Perfect operation there from Jordan Love. Pre-snap, identifying the pressure, getting to exactly the right protection, exactly the right play, and you hit it for a big one. And then in the red zone for the touchdown, Jayden Reed, still a big part of this offense. They tried on a third down late in the game. A little rail shot to him. That was the drop. That was the play that you really want him to make. But he's still a big part of this offense. This is still, remember, an egalitarian offense. So Romeo Doubs is going to have his part. Downtavian Wicks is going to have his part. Reed, Golden, Kraft, they're all partisans here. I do believe 12 personnel is going to be a big deal in this game. Because the Commanders really only want to play 2 linebackers, Bobby Wagner and Frankie Louvu. Those guys are downhill football players. Frankie Louvu is really only useful coming downhill. I would expect them to send Frankie Louvu a bunch in this game. Maybe they'll play him as a spy just to be, to change it up a little bit, more simulated pressures. You show a bunch of pressure and pop out of it, but Jordan Love has been so good with that pre-snap operation. I don't know that that's the right thing here. Dan Quinn doesn't seem to either, because Dan Quinn has never had really any good options against a Matt LaFleur offense. He's never had the answers to the test in that regard. And this goes back to, by the way, Kyle Shanahan in Atlanta just eating his lunch in practice every day, and Dan Quinn never had any answers, still doesn't have any answers. But the offensive line is where you have the questions, because Zach Tom did not participate. Darian Kennard was the replacement in the game on Sunday, but Jordan Morgan, theoretically the backup left tackle, has practiced and played right tackle at various points in his 2-year career now in Green Bay, but never in a game. Played right guard, but not right tackle. And I think that would be option 1 if Zach Tom couldn't go, is to play Jordan Morgan at right tackle. He is their swing tackle. I think that would be the plan. The problem is Aaron Banks is also dealing with both an ankle and a groin injury. Now, he was playing late in that game. Remember, he had the back injury. He was playing late into the fourth quarter, Aaron Banks was. So it may just be that he came out sore than expected, or there was a tweak or something. But that the offensive line finished with Jordan Morgan playing guard and Darian Kennard playing tackle. And by the way, Darian Kennard was moving bodies. And there were times when this looks like a pickup that I don't think was on a lot of people's radar when it happened. This is just a nice versatile depth piece, Darian Kennard. He was out there moving bodies in the run game. And the Commanders do not have the most imposing edge players. I know that they got some pressure on Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson is a player who cannot move anymore, has never really felt pressure particularly well, and has never been a guy who's just going to say, I'm going to get the ball out. No, he's going to try and do his Houdini thing, even into his 30s, when he can't move the same way anymore. But Dietrich Wise and Dorrance Armstrong are not world beaters. Dorrance Armstrong, the stats will show he was like, Myles Garrett on Sunday. He wasn't. He was going up against a really, really bad offensive line. I would expect even the backups are going to play better than that, but the Packers always have such a good protection plan. I think Brandon Thorne from Trench Warfare pointed this out, that Aiden Hutchinson really only had 4 or 5 true one-on-one pass sets for him to attack. Everything else was chips. It was wadded up. It was running back help, chip release, double teams. And that's what the Packers can do. And I think they can attack this Commander secondary. I like Mikey Samerstill, but he's a smaller player. Now, the Packers have some smaller receivers, but I think you can attack him vertically. Marshawn Lattimore has not been the same player in Washington that we saw at his prime in New Orleans. And beyond that, you're talking about Noah Igbenogany, the linebackers in the middle of the field. I think that's where you can get Tucker Kraft, Luke Musgrave involved in all of this. And if you have some questions about your offensive line, getting into heavy personnel is exactly what you want to do. Protect them. Give your offensive line a chance to get chip release help if you need it. But these are not edge rushers that scare you. The meat of this Commanders defensive front is up the middle. Daron Payne, Johnny Newton. They paid big money for Javon Kinlaw, who played pretty well against the Giants. But again, it's just not a very good Giants offensive line. Congratulations for playing great against the Giants offensive line. It's a bad group. The Packers are just so much better. And I don't think the combination of Javon Kinlaw and Daron Payne is better than the interior that the Lions have. Now, the Packers were not able to get a lot of push in the run game. That's going to be the question is, if you can't get push in the run game, can Jordan Love pick up the rest of the slack? I think he can. You just have to avoid the turnovers. And Jordan Love has not had a problem with Dan Quinn defenses. Matt LaFleur has not had a problem with Dan Quinn defenses. They're going to have answers to the test this week. It's going to be about execution. This is also exactly when having the deepest offensive line in the NFL is exactly what you need. Because you lose 2 starters in week 1, and you got to play a quick turnaround game, and you have answers, like good answers. There are not, I don't think there is another team in the NFL that could say that. There you go. We felt almost as good about this group in week 2 as you did in week 1 when your starters were out there. Partially because I think Jordan Morgan is just flat out an upgrade over Aaron Banks. And Kennard has played well. He's not going to be Zach Tom, but also the Commanders don't have Aiden Hutchinson. They have Von Miller, but Von has not looked like Von really since like 2021. So this, we talked about catching the Lions at the perfect time. This is kind of the perfect defense to have some of these question marks against, because they don't really have the players to take full advantage of you having a backup in there. And again, I think it's important to say Jordan Morgan, was rotating at guard before the injuries for the Packers with Sean Ryan, not at left tackle, at right guard. As good as he played at left tackle, I think that they see, long-term that opportunity there. And it's just easier to have a rotation at guard than it is at tackle. The Packers have done it. They did it in 2023 with Yash Nyman and Rasheed Walker the first time, but that doesn't mean that that's the smart way to handle this. I think the way that they're handling it is the smart way to handle it. But Jordan Morgan is kind of your 5th and a half starter. When you have a player of that quality that you can just put out there, you don't worry about Johnny Newton or Daron Payne the same way. And so this is the way that this team was built for these moments. Their depth is their superpower. It's being tested right away. Here you go. Let's see it. Now, how do you defend Jaden Daniels? That's the question. And we'll talk about it next on Locked On Packers. You can just move through life, or you can find the things that move you. It's your choice. You can choose to get out there, choose your people. You can choose to go for it, like really go for it. Just choose to do something that moves you. Mazda crafts cars for those who choose to do more than simply move. Mazda, move and be moved. Thank you for making Locked On Packers your first listen of the day. The NFL season is finally here. For your second listen, get a double dose of the Locked On NFL podcast. Tyler, the Madman Roland, gives you a shot of espresso to start your football day, while Tony Wiggins takes you into the barbershop for the smoothest breakdowns to end the day. Find Locked On NFL on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Jaden Daniels is so tricky because if you pressure him, he can beat you if you don't get home, because his legs are, if not the ultimate weapon, because Lamar Jackson exists, like one of them. And teams still blitzed him a lot last year because he was a rookie, and that's what you do to rookies. And there was varying success, right? I mentioned top 5 in interceptions against pressure, according to True Media last year, but also top 5 in touchdowns thrown against pressure, against blitzes, blitz looks. I don't want to just say pressure. I want to differentiate there. Against blitzes. And we saw that against the Giants. There were some times when it worked and times when you got beat. Does Jeff Hafley want to live in that world? I wrote about this yesterday for The Leap, a newsletter I would love for you to subscribe to. And I believe this. You don't have to change what you do that much. I know that sounds weird. But the passing profile of Goff and Daniels, very similar. In terms of average depth of target, they're both well below average in terms of how much they are attacking down the field. And I know that even seems a little bit weird to say, right? Because we think of, Jaden Daniels as this excellent deep ball thrower, and he is. And we think of the Lions offense as explosive down the field, and they are. but they're just highly efficient with those deep shots. When they take those shots, they work. That was the same for the Commanders last year. Daniels threw the ball vertically on 9.6% of his attempts last year. That was 31st among qualifying quarterbacks. They're not going to just sit back there and ask Jaden to sling the rock down the field every time. By the way, Jared Goff, 8.3%. Jaden Daniels threw short of the sticks as often as any quarterback, 21st in terms of how often he was throwing short of the sticks, regularly and consistently throwing it short and hoping that his guys can create something for him after the play. But this was still a top 10 offense by DVOA. Well, the Packers saw that plan. They rallied and tackled as well as I've ever seen them. There are 3, 4, 5, 6, 8 Packers sometimes around the ball by the time it's all said and done. And so we saw them do this. Washington wants to be a heavy play action team. PFF graded Jaden Daniels as the 3rd best quarterback off play action in 2024. Well, that's the best thing the Lions do. The Lions are the best in the NFL at doing it. And the Packers had everything read. Everything read. There was nothing for the one time Sam Laporta got loose. That's it. That's it. And so just from that standpoint, just from like the true passes, all the ways that you defended the Lions passing offense, that stuff worked to defend the Commanders passing offense. The difference is there's this extra layer because it's Jaden Daniels. If you pressure Jaden Daniels and you don't get home, you're in trouble. The good news for Green Bay is when they pressure, they don't have to play man coverage behind. In fact, Jeff Hafley, kind of to everyone's surprise, has not played a ton of man coverage in Green Bay, partially because he just doesn't have the horses for it. It doesn't look like Nate Hobbs is going to be back for this game either. You'd hope week 3 is when you're going to finally see him. But the Packers consistently had eyes to the ball. It was much more the vision and break style of defense that we thought we would see last year. And part of that is now when you have Micah Parsons, and I assume there's going to be, he'll play at least 40% of snaps again, that you're going to trust that 4-man rush a little bit more, especially against this Commanders offensive line, which is nowhere near as good, even a depleted version of the Lions offensive line that we're seeing right now in 2024. You rush 4, you play 3 deep, 4 under, you've got eyes to the quarterback, and you've got the linebackers who can actually chase down Jaden Daniels. Edgerrin Cooper and Quay Walker are those guys. You want to get Jaden Daniels out on the edge? You want to run zone read? Here come Edgerrin Cooper and Quay Walker. It's the most athletic linebacker duo in the NFL. And it's not just that they're athletic. They played terrific football last week, at least coming down and stopping the run. Passing game is a little bit more hit or miss for them, though I think Edge Cooper better than Quay Walker at this point. But this is the version of the defense we thought we were going to see. And when you have eyes to the quarterback at all times, when he breaks the pocket, now you have eyes on. It's not man coverage. It's really hard to play man coverage against Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Jaden Daniels, these running quarterbacks, because if everyone has their eyes on the guy they're supposed to be covering, who is supposed to be covering the quarterback? Even if you have a spy, Jaden Daniels is more athletic than 95% of spies in the NFL. Now, maybe not more athletic than Edgerrin Cooper, who I'll never forget hawking down Jalen Milroe, who ran 4.4s at Alabama. They have the linebackers to spy and make that work if they want to do that. But if you're playing that 4 under defense anyway, those guys are there. They're just there. You don't have to build in a spy into your game plan. They're just there. So if you're watching on YouTube, you're seeing me smile because I just feel like this matchup so suits the Packers. And it's what makes, in a lot of ways, the injuries from last year so frustrating, because you feel like if you had beaten the Eagles, a second chance at glory against the Lions, maybe the Commanders get to the NFC Championship game. I feel like that was a good matchup for Green Bay. I think this is a good matchup for the Packers yet again. And look, Micah Parsons is used to seeing Jaden Daniels run around. He's used to Jalen Hurts, seeing him run around. He knows what that's like. He knows, having done this twice last year and again, twice against the Eagles. So 4 of his games last year and 2 every year that Jalen Hurts has been the quarterback. This is not new to Micah Parsons. It's not like he's some, wholly undisciplined crazy guy off the edge. No, he is a crazy guy off the edge. But he understands the schemes that you need to deploy to slow down guys like Jaden Daniels. It's not going to mute how good Micah Parsons is. And he said this yesterday. He's like, look, I like the horsepower on our defense. Between Parsons, between Gary, between Cooper, you have the guys to chase down Jaden Daniels. And so if you can corral him, keep him in the pocket. 131 passing yards is all Jalen Hurts had in the playoff game last year. 131. And that's against a Philadelphia Eagles offensive line, or with a Philadelphia Eagles offensive line giving him all day to throw. And that's without Micah Parsons disrupting that offensive line. Now it's the Commanders' offensive line, big step down, and you're adding Micah Parsons, big step up. You can take the same game plan that you used against the Eagles last year, and there was a lot of vanilla rush 4, keep your guys out, close down those spaces in zone coverage, make them read it out, rally and tackle. Because Jaden Daniels wants to get the ball out quick. Cliff Kingsbury gives him a lot of quick answers and schemed up plays. Okay, RPO, read the conflict defender or read the numbers, and there it is. But the ball's out quick, 2 yards, behind the line of scrimmage, little glance route. And then you do that enough times, now all of a sudden, here's the play action shot play. Here's the flash fake out of the shotgun, and now you're going over the top. So all of the things that the Packers used to be the Lions, no big plays, limit yak, stop the run. If you do that, you will beat this Commanders team, at least on defense. And then it'll be up to Jordan Love to attack a defense he has lit up in the past. Seems pretty good. All right, David Harrison from Locked On Commanders joins me tomorrow as our crossover Thursday show for the Thursday night game. And then, of course, we will be live after the game on the Locked On Packers YouTube page, the Squad Show with Jeff Jagosinski, former Packers offensive coordinator, and our pal Brandon Snide. He and I and Jags, the three of us on the Squad Show for an hour after that. So it's 90 minutes of post-game after the game. Yes, we'll be up late. Grab your favorite beverage, adult or otherwise, and we'll have a good time doing that. Follow me on the social medias. Follow the podcast on the social medias. Subscribe to wherever you get podcasts here with Locked On Packers. Watch us on YouTube. Subscribe. Get the notifications for when we're going to go live. Bang, we're there right on your phone or right on your computer, whatever you're going to do so you can stay Locked On Packers.